The Churchill County Jane Doe, identified as Betty Japel. This begins in early 2006, and our main focus is 69-year-old Betty Japel, who pretty much danced to the beat of her own drum. She was dating a 73-year-old man named Kenneth William Miller. The two hailed from McMinnville, Oregon, but they traveled the U.S. pretty frequently in their 25-foot 1976 sports coach motorhome, as well as traveling with a black and silver Dodge Ram pickup. However, like a lot of these cases, their contact with family was pretty sporadic, and that makes it hard to know when someone went missing. They lived a lifestyle on the road, moving frequently from place to place. They just liked to live on their own terms. And of course, this wasn't a time when a lot of people had cell phones. The family would become increasingly concerned when they hadn't heard from them. They last spoke to her while she was in Quartzsite, Arizona in early 2006. The worry would magnify, though, by the middle of that year. Their motorhome would be found abandoned in a remote area of Redmond, Oregon. Then their truck was found abandoned in my own state, which is Montana. They had a bank account that they used, but it was last accessed in June of 2006. All that was known outside of this was that they were traveling with their friend Gregory Allen Cole, who went by the nickname of Groundhog. The concern for their safety would increase again in 2007 after Cole shot a police officer during a traffic stop. Quartzsite police officer J.C. Kemp survived because he was thankfully wearing a vest. The police would announce that Cole is dangerous and warn the public to beware. It was also a reminder that Betty Japel and her boyfriend Kenneth Miller were still missing, and he was with them the last time they were known to be alive. It would end up that Gregory Allen Cole was driving an RV that had Oregon license plates that actually belonged on a black and silver Dodge Ram, the same Dodge Ram that was owned by the missing man, Kenneth Miller. This began when Officer Kemp decided to stop in a 1976 Ford motorhome at 5 a.m. near East Kuhn Road and State Route 95. He was fired on by the person in the motorhome before he even exited his vehicle, and he did not even have time to unholster his sidearm. As a result, he was struck 4 times. It really is just a miracle that he was okay. He was transported by helicopter to a Phoenix hospital. He was a veteran who'd been working at the sheriff's office for years. It turned out that Cole was already wanted by the police for what was described as felony charges. So the police went searching for Cole with renewed effort, and it was renewed questions and concerns about Betty and Kenneth that became sort of wrapped up in this case. There were no signs of the elderly couple anywhere, and there was suspicion that Cole had done something to them. A huge search would go down with ground units as well as a helicopter searching by air. They found the motorhome that Cole was driving, but it had been abandoned in Quartzsite that day. They thankfully were able to expand the search area, and they found him. He was in a wash outside of Quartzsite, about 20 miles east of the California-Arizona state line. Rather than take responsibility for what he's done, he would unalive himself. Usually I feel pretty compassionate toward the people involved, but not in this case, and part of me can't help thinking good riddance. But at the same time, it's incredibly unfair that he couldn't give some closure to Betty Japel and Kenneth William Miller's family. So then, as of 2007, Cole was gone. And in June of 2007, they would go back and search the area close to where the couple's motorhome was found. While they had never married, the two of them had been together for 30 years. It was at this time they would discover the buried remains of a man eventually identified as 73-year-old Kenneth Miller. But as far as Betty, there were no signs. It didn't look good, but they couldn't find her at all. What they didn't know then, and we know now, is that in Churchill County, Nevada, a passerby had discovered skeletal fragments covered with dirt and gravel in a remote area of the U.S. Highway 95 near mile marker 55. And then dealing with that Jane Doe, the Churchill County Sheriff's Office would conduct the investigation. The shallow dirt grave was excavated, and they found more skeletal fragments along with an orange halter top. It was determined that the COD was due to multiple wounds. In 2023, the medical examiner would submit forensic evidence from this Jane Doe to Othram Labs in Woodlands, Texas, and this would lead them to the family of a 69-year-old woman who went missing, Betty Lou Japel. She'd finally been found. The couple had met the monster known as Gregory Allen Cole along their travels, and they believed him to be a friend. The police have long believed Cole took her life and took the life of her longtime boyfriend. The coroner would express gratitude at the kind funding through the general public to help identify Jane and John Doe's, as well as how thankful he is that the Japel family finally knows what happened to Betty. Betty Lou Japel was missing for 18 years, and an unidentified Jane Doe for 15. Had she lived, she would be 84 years old today. The Columbia County Jane Doe, identified as Sandra Young. This one begins in a way that I always have to cringe about when it happens. Columbia County, Oregon, was the location in February of 1970 when a Boy Scout troop leader made the unfortunate discovery of partial skeletal remains. They found a short black wig in the area, and this was on Soji Island in Columbia County. They believed her to be a black female. However, her hands and skull were not found in the area, which of course sounds extremely suspicious. The county coroner's office took another shot when her remains were returned to them in 2004. In 2018, Parabon agreed to take on the case using phenotyping to depict what she may have looked like, producing these recreations here. I'm absolutely amazed by these Parabon snapshots. They are often so close to what the person really looked like. It's amazing. They were also able to confirm our Jane Doe was a black female who was of both African and European descent. A pretty common problem would arise in this case. There was no COD that they could determine, but the police also lost the case file. So while there had been work done and probably more indications of who may have done this, all of that is lost. Because the file went missing, it does mean they may not identify the perpetrator, and maybe they would have. Probably not, but maybe the odds are against it, but it's possible. And it just feels like Sandra Young deserves justice. I get why all the things went wrong, but the fact that they did seems to matter. Thankfully, at least Sandra Young once again has her name. And we know now that she attended Grant High School in Portland, Oregon, and this was when she went missing in either 1968 or 1969. She was likely around 18 when her life was taken. She was found about 40 miles or 64 kilometers from where she went missing. Detectives need more, however, and Sandra deserves that too. So if anyone has information, please call Crime Stoppers of Oregon, which you can see on the screen. What's sad now is Sandra's sister does have information on what happened to her sister and maybe some sort of closure, but Sandy went missing in the late 1960s, and they were already hurting for that when another sister lost her life to gun violence in the early 1970s. Sandra Young went unidentified for 53 years. Had she lived, she would be 73 years old today. Huge thanks for watching all the way to the end, and a big thanks to all of you who consistently like and comment on the videos. The whole dance with YouTube is hard sometimes. Whether you leave a full comment or an emoji, it makes a huge difference. It's a huge push toward the videos being suggested to new people. The next goal is 20,000. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other.